I guess we all realize that what we should be doing goes by a number of different names. There's organizations that have been around for a long time. Save the Children, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, the Red Crescent Medical Society, the local chapter of Chi Franciscan or Salvation Army. There are individual charities that work with the women who are poor in the world who can't afford feminine hygiene to provide tampons, for example, during their menstrual cycles. None of this can be overlooked. It's all foundational to the process of developing and maintaining a sustainable civilization. Sustainable development and planetary health are recent additions to our current vocabulary, current affairs vocabulary. I read Who Speaks for the Earth when I was about 13 years old in 1974 and never lost my sense of trying to get my bearings relative to the insights of Buckminster Fuller, for example, Thor Heyerdahl. When Georgia Maloney, who I guess is the thinking turtle of Italy's intellectual franchise or something, some country in Europe, that we are inherently estranged from one another, some stuff like this when it comes to the Islamic world. I shudder, or maybe am filled with horror. But it's a mistake to believe that that is what stands in the way of cultural assimilation and reform of our educational system so that awareness and ability and talent in maintaining ecological systems and saving the planet is instituted. Curricular change and development. I talk, you know, it's my painting of Greta Thunberg. If I had discovered Greta Thunberg and gotten into climate action, I would still be very proud of my recognition, talent, ability, and message. I'd been waiting a long time, however, to hear somebody say what she said. I just finished a climate change course, which is rare to find a community college that offers climate change and botany, as I managed to find and complete these courses when she took her stand. Lovely woman. What stands between our world and cultural reform only appears to be the bias. Those of us who have struggled with, I mean, what society in history has ever heard that trillions and trillions of dollars went through a revolving door into nowhere? Somebody stole them. Some showman museum heisted all of these money bags through the Pentagon into nobody knows where. And they didn't ask questions, demand answers. They said, oh, the government's a huge counterfeiting machine. We'll just print more money and add to the debt soon. Those of us who are aware that the military-industrial complex is the counterfeiting system, and it's a doomsday device, have also been aware that diplomacy, the talent, all of our talent, brilliance, all of our high school graduates, all of our learned people, all of our stoics, all of our armchair realists should be putting their intelligence to work resolving the issues of diplomacy. We've known that for a long time. And we've heard the stuff about not drowned it out by calls, cat calls of naivete and so on. But those things have been around a long time. That's not what stands in our way. Bias is an obstacle, but it's a treacherous obstacle, but it can be overcome. The whole civil rights movement proves that it can be overcome. So it's not that stands in our way. It's an obstacle. It's a huge. It gets bigger and bigger all the time. But we all know we should be putting more into diplomacy is the point. So something else is preventing it, is congesting the situation. And I propose to shed light on this. If you look at the beginning of my intellectual development, it begins with a thundering, laconic doomsday song called March for No Reason by the Hitler Kiddies of Liverpool, King Crimson. And March for No Reason was their input into a band they called King Crimson after Martin Luther King was killed in the Crimson Pool of Blood. March for No Reason is their input. Well, I never liked Pink Floyd, but they said something that's very significant and localizes my statement that I have consciousness about what needs to be reformed and changed and addressed in order to transform the curriculum to diplomacy and ecology. And it comes from something that they muttered when one of their yawning and appalling hypnographies. They said, "It is all right. We know what you dreamed." Okay, now some people think, oh, authoritarian satire, blah, 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 blah. No, this is an occupational obsession from the axis within Hollywood cinema. And I'll explain how I know this. When McIntosh, who was the Clint Eastwood of Fulton Elementary School, read us The Outsiders, even then, even when I was a child, I found it uncanny that the people who I was meeting, Tony Servi and Carmen Colucci, filled in the eidetic vision. I knew that word. Of the way I visualized The Outsiders, which Gail Burston, the Zionist, was making a great deal out of. And I want to pause on Gail Burston because she's at the heart of this matter. Gail Carolyn Burston is a homophone for Christian Armageddonism. Make no mistake. Penis Gabriel calls his company Hidden Pun. Gay onus, Christmas caroling, bombs bursting. Gail Carolyn Burston. And it has to do with the enemy within. Edna Ray Galuli changed her name to Linda Burston to make The Exorcist. And they implanted a neuroplasm, the Zionist Wattenmaker did, which is Wattenmaker. You can see the Van de Graaff generators of the nuclear electricity in their heads. So this Frankenstein experiment was a revolving door between Access Hollywood and reality. And I've shown the parallel, The Killers by Reagan's last film, to what happened in Dealey Plaza chronologically and in terms of content. They had this revolving door. Do you know what is real? You say you know what is real. That's all right. We know what you dream. Do so you think you can tell. He goes, he taunts a lot. Roger Waters is sort of the alter ego of Donald Trump in the matter. He's the right-hand man in England. And they were playing these child developmental games. The woman who introduced me to Gail Burston with the words, "Remember me," when I had never met her before. And they were impinging a lot of these kinds of vocabulary thinkings for later analysis. Post critical analysis, a kid from Harvard who was a friend of Gail Burson impinged on the persona. Greg Carl inputted in Flexus mental abuse because this was Yoko Ono. She had James McRyland Curry. Did you see the cargo ship smashed the Francis Scott Key Bridge? Francis Scott Key is the author of The Star Spangled Banner. James McRyland Curry is a perfect United States of America name. It has the iambic pentameter of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, James McRyland Curry. And it's a signifier from Bush's ship in the Navy. So they had a symbol of American presidency to poach. And Yoko Ono cackled. The girl who introduced me to this woman who wrote this script called me up one day and told me this strange ethereal story of her and her sister being held at knife point and forced by a black man to do things. And she had the cadence and clip of Revolution Number 9 on the phone occasionally when she called me. The vocabulary, what I said, was deceitfully poached by Trump and James W. Child for their post-critical presentation of what they pulled. And I remember thinking it was strange even then that I inputted in my eidetic vision the black man who had been tormenting me. I said to myself, but there's no proof. And it probably didn't even happen. It was probably just a child development scare story by the Israelis, which they're now known to be diligent about doing. But it provided the background of what an elephant never forgets, and Pino Crimson of Liverpool's Psycho Ward, the Ouspensky cosmonaut. They used to always say when I tried to present ecology reform, build a greenhouse, teach the environment, that old cosmic education from Jimmy Creary. They were the ones who were into cosmic education. Elephants never forget, and he puts out the song called Elephant Talk, because they had soundtracks from Number 9 implanted in the neuroplasm that they were extruding with their NEVA embarrassment agents. I mean, no child wants to be reminded how lewd adult women used him when he was traumatose and crying. So, see, Carnegie Mellon, Brian Milnes and Jaime Carbonell had a NEVA Corporation embarrassment agent in place, which is McCartney's style too. And Milnes had a friend named Lee Schumacher, which is important because if you take Macher, you get Schumer. And Jews in Britain were inside the corporate mechanism pulling this mass heist. So, and Lenin always called himself a mocker. So they used the University of Pittsburgh was really into this thing they were doing. They were cultivating. They had this idea. We know what you dreamed, right? So they had this. They had an attorney come to me when I was working there and still friends with everybody. Katz and I had broken up, but I was still getting rides home from her mother and stuff. And he said it wouldn't have been rape. And yeah, I reacted against that kind of talk. You know, these people are communists or something, and they're out to make me out to be a communist. But they said, we know what you dream. You dream what wouldn't have been rape. I was in love with this woman, and I was servicing her orally. She was a virgin and she was coy. And I let it go. But of course, my heart was broken when she rubbed it in my face that she gave her virginity to a man who was more forceful. And Pitt was really into this. So was Penis Gabriel, because they didn't want to hear my voice. Now, March for No Reason, you wonder, why didn't Gay Society lash out and march against the AIDS attack? Well, they clearly had leaders who knew about Gail Burston and told them it will be a march for no reason. Because what you want is a dream theory. That's Brian Eno's mentality. And we'll give you the dream theory of seeing Queerball's heart broken. And Roger Waters represented Lennon, and Trumpy Toon was behind the scenes, behind the mirrors and the revolving bookshelves, representing Reagan. Now, Reagan and Lennon had worked with the Houdini franchise of Hollywood to make it look like they were under attack. So Trump and Waters had a carte blanche to mislead the queers and have them accepting torture. You're poachers too, they told them. Don't you want to see a genocide in return for the genocide you endured? Whose genocide, yours or Gaza's? And Maloney comes in with her baloney. Maloney's baloney. We can't reconcile that. What the point that I'm making is that in order to understand, oh, they upload facial recognition devices. This is all the mechanics of Lenin. They follow me around and they say they have mind readers, you know. They can see the neuro nodding that makes me seize up when they terrorize me. And they say then they were saying he's harboring a secret of self-defense. That's not Amnesty International. And they implanted this idea so that they could change the subject to trivial issues about whether or not a poet sometimes gets angry. Because it's a big cosmic thing about, we know what you dreamed. You dreamed you were John Lennon. And they come follow me on my iPhone, you know, and they see the girls from the discotheque scene, the TikTok and Yoko Ono have marching in accompaniment to the Gaza genocide, which is Trump's dry way of protesting abortion, obviously. So they have that scene, and we know what you dreamed. Wouldn't you like to licky chops with these girls? I've been celibate for 30 years because Yoko Ono's intent in attacking the Francis Scott Key Bridge of James McRathen Curry was to castrate me. That's the Japanese sadism that's at work. That's an inherent mentality of Japanese sadism. They wrecked me on Parkinson's and stuff. And one of the men who was behind all this, Clint Eastwood, is sort of the ghoulish mentat, if you remember Frank Herbert's Dune, of National Review. The National Review dudes used to sit around. They're spending trillions and trillions of dollars on bombs that could blow up Earth, the Moon, Venus, and Mars in one blast, right? And why are you doing this stupid thing? And they go, if my neighbor buys a rifle, I'm sure going to buy a rifle. And Clint Eastwood plays this drone. I have a daughter. So he demands to know if you dreamed of doing what wouldn't have been rape. It's that Clint. They're really into this and really sadistic. It reminds me of that scene in James Bond where the guy says something about his brother. And the guy take him hostage says, I got a brother. And Fleming looks at him and says, or the Scottish guy looks at him and says, small world. You know, I mean, diligently idiotic stuff. So Michael Reagan is certainly going to keep it up. certainly, because Michael Reagan's thing is to hotwire little boys and get around the evidence that Reagan and Trump and Lennon and Waters had something worked out. Woody Allen and Brian Eno were both the same way. Woody Allen has this scene where, well, you don't know what you're talking about. They're in line and he's listening to a professor. I have Marshall McLuhan right here. And he trots out Marshall McLuhan to say, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about, to this professor. Well, Eno's the same way. He calls up Reagan on the phone. I got this guy Queerbeat. And one of the things that they did, the mechanics of London are very cunning, was that they had this metric of what John Lennon's honor code is, right? He was licentious, he did drugs, he's advocated for violent crime in Attica State. And Chapman was given the raw throwaway line, I didn't know he was your friend, after they claimed he had shot Lennon. But there was somebody there named Sean Strubb with Gail Burson clarifies what they were really doing, that Lennon was being Houdini'd. But they understood the honor code metric. And supposedly John Lennon was as one with Reagan. What's Reagan's honor code? Reagan's honor code is presumably the military cult society of Gregory Carl, Pope Carl, I call him, where you have chastity to marital fidelity. That's an absolute. And Lennon was sort of retracting all his stuff in the end to promote that idea with his last album. So they're reconciled, right? So the honor code is you reconcile with the people who just obliterated your society. And people are not trying to defend American society's best interests. And Biden is like working class hero. You must learn to smile as you kill. JFK was far wiser. And the car producer, I mean, Yoko Ono goes, war is over if you want it. But what about people who don't want it? Is what she's understating. It's not reading between the lines, it's understatement. And Marinetti, who originated this crowd of Axis great dictators in accompaniment with the Hollywood studio system, was an Italian futurist from the First World War era to the Second World War era. And they glorified war. They made no secret of glorifying war. So it's not just tongue in cheek, it's a historical allusion to these men. Now, they said, I broke Lenin's honor code. They're the ones who sided with Reagan. So we have to take them at their word. Lenin and Reagan were as one in the whole thing. And this is the march. So they said, queers, it would be senseless to march because we already have the situation resolved with the partnership of Waters and Trump. But it was all planned. The mechanics of Lenin cooperated in the whole thing. They were very sly. And it's clear that Michael Reagan will never stop, will never answer how they had me, cast as the virgin hunting vampire, but on the set when Reagan waves to me the night before he claims he was shot with the script stuffed in my like $100 bill up my butt. So the mechanics of Lenin have worked a number on our society, and Michael Reagan will never stop. They depict me as the beneficiary of the genocide to protect the actual killers. And you can get this very simply by watching the film Diva, which came out just before their attack, when they say, and my birthday is on the poster of that film, of that performance that's so famous in Diva. In that film, when they say it's in the kids' mailbag, the people we should be investigating are not Jimmy Crary. It's the producers and directors of films like Diva. We're dealing with Access Hollywood, and they don't know what we dream. They're trying to stage, manage, produce, and control what we dream.